just too many rates. Many people had criticized it. I myself have argued for simplification of the system for a long time. The time has come to simply go back, look at the first principles of which rate should be where, and shift it onto that new rate. What we have done is, one, there is a massive efficiency gain, simplified the system. We have lowered most of the taxes, so therefore that effect is there as well. We have been thinking about doing this for quite some time, and work on this is going on. So this Trump tariff issue was only a few weeks old, actually, if you think about it, last couple of months. So, you can't announce a major reform like this without having prepared for a very long period of time.
Yesterday, how big is these announcements for the common man, middleman, middle class man, and the MSME, and for the industry? How do you look at it?
I think the way to think about this is the following. When we introduced the GST in 2017, our main concern was really shifting the overall system onto this new formulation of GST. And so what we didn't do at that time was to go back and look at which rate was supposed to be at what level based on some first principles thinking. Basically, we shifted it based on what pre-existed. Now, that's not an unreasonable thing to do for a transition, because we wanted to be, simply move on to the new system and cause as little disruption to the economy as possible. Now, after that, we spent several years, obviously, refining the system. We obviously went through the COVID shock, and then afterwards also, we have been fixing them little by little along the way. But the thought began to arise about a year ago that now is the time has come, it's stable, people understand what the system is. We now need to go back to first principles and see why should something be at this level and not at that level. Also, of course, there's been the long-term thing that we had talked about, Sahil, about simplifying it. There's just too many rates. Many people had criticized it. I myself have argued for simplification of the system for a long time. So all of that meant that we decided that, look, the time has come to simply go back, look at the first principles of which rate should be where, and shift it onto that new rate. Now, no longer correlated to what used to exist in the pre-GST period. So this has now been worked out from first principles. One of the important things we have looked at is obviously what are essential goods, what the poor use, what the middle classes use, and so on. But also an important thing is to make sure you don't have inverted duty structures of various kinds. So simplifying that, the textile industry is one industry that will benefit from this, and so on and so forth. So basically having a rational system that makes sense at first principles basis.
What is your model factoring in terms of the impact to the FY 25, 26 and 26, 27, given the recent GST rate rationalization?
So it's almost impossible to model these things. As you can imagine, there are too many things, moving parts, not the least that, what's happening worldwide and so on. So I don't think you can meaningfully model this, but let's say that what we have done is, one, there is a massive efficiency gain, simplified the system. We have lowered most of the taxes, so therefore that effect is there as well. So you have lowered the tax slabs in pretty much every case. So the combination of simplification and of the tax slabs, and also the productivity benefits you will get from the process reforms, which the discussion has almost gone entirely about slabs, but in fact, if you read the announcement, they have significant about the process reforms. For example, there were a lot of complaints about the fact that there has been sort of a return to the tax inspector Raj, because if you did a registration, it would take long time to get your number and so on. So we took that into account. And so now a new system has been put in place where hopefully around about 97% of the people should get their numbers within 3 days. If that doesn't work, we will simplify it further, but I think this will work. And so that is basically the idea. Simplify the system, get rid of the friction wherever possible, and of course the overall lowering of the tax burden.
Do you think the GST is going to dilute the pressure from the US tariffs, the situation which is right now looming around across the world? Do you think it's going to dilute?
No, I don't think it is correlated to that. first of all, I think the debate is about external tariffs, not internal ones. Secondly, the fact of the matter is we have been thinking about doing this for quite some time, and work on this is going on. So this Trump tariff issue was only a few weeks old, actually, if you think about it, last couple of months. So, you can't announce a major reform like this without having prepared for a very long period of time. So we have been working on it for a long time, and I'm quite glad this is happening. But I don't think you should directly correlate it to any external negotiations on tariffs, etc. Although, of course, in a long-term sense, this is a good thing. If this is good for the economy, it also strengthens our position in the world.
Talking about the auto sector, nil and zero GST is going to benefit the common man and middle class, farmers, MSME. How do you see the GST announcement on the auto sector? Want to understand, does this going to benefit the car buyers or
no? First of all, so obviously the first round is that for smaller cars and smaller motorcycles. In fact, it's not really small. 350cc for a mobile is pretty big. But anyway, for the cars, for 1200cc for the cars, diesel is I think 1500. But anyway, the point I'm making is that for smaller cars, of course, this lowers it significantly. Even for larger cars, people don't realize that the cars used to not just have the 28%. They also had the compensation cess. Yeah, so if you combine them, they actually go over 40%. So in fact, it'll come down a little bit if anything. Now, of course, there are other items which are sin items, like tobacco items, where I am in favor of having high rates. But even for large cars, once the compensation cess thing rolls over, they will benefit.
This brings me to the last question, Mr. Sania. Businessmen were forced to pay many taxes, the sales tax, service tax, excise, and whatnot. Failing to pay these taxes, they were subjected to raids and harassments as well. After the GST was implemented, now GST announcement yesterday talks about more simplification. What are the difference do you see pre-GST to post-GST? What kind of simplification?
So the pre-GST system was an absolute mess, as you will know. There were gazillion state taxes, central taxes as well. And basically nobody knew what was going on. There was a huge amount of cascading happening, and not to mention it was inefficient. A lot of people escaped the net altogether. And those who actually honestly paid their taxes had to do a very complicated system. So in that way, the GST system is radically better. I've repeatedly said this. It was the equivalent of a free trade agreement India signed with itself. Because effectively now the Indian states can freely trade with themselves because they have the same framework. Earlier on, if you took a product from Mumbai to Delhi, and at every border, you'd remember there would be long queues of trucks standing there for hours on end. So, in that sense, the GST system is been an absolute success. It has genuinely converted into a common internal market. It's much simpler than the older system. This is not to suggest that it didn't have friction. There were many inefficiencies in the system. One of them, of course, was the multiplicity of tax slabs, and also the fact that it was not necessarily logical. Something was somewhere just because in the pre-GST system, it was there. So here what has happened is that you have now, even if you didn't know what the tax rate is, if I just tell you the name of the item, even by common sense, I think 90% plus of the time you'll be able to work out which of the two slabs it is. If it's a food type item, if it's this thing, it's probably at 5 or 0. If it's an air conditioner, it'll be at 18. Whatever it is. The point is, you can work it out roughly. If it's tobacco, it's at 40. I don't have to tell you that what it is logically based. So that too is an improvement, because now they correlate to something to what is economic efficiency.